on your channel, you've got a ton of videos. These are probably some of my favorites. You got a lot of tips and tricks. You got a lot of commentary. If you could think of your top 3 PvP tips for anyone of any class coming in, what do you think those would be? They can be general, doesn't need to be like particularly niche, but three tips for new players coming in.
I think it kind of depends how new you are, right? So if you're really starting out like I did back in the day and you've never played an MMO, then, I think tip number 1 would probably be to, learn to properly control your character, which is really key. And, I obviously also watched some of your videos. I know you've talked about that. But, making sure you have your settings in place, making sure you stop clicking is important. So you learn how to keybind, which I think now is easier than ever since, there's less abilities in the game than there used to. So you can start, maybe with your 3-4 core abilities if you're a clicker trying to transition. But I think it really makes a big difference, especially if you're playing like a melee character.
Yeah.
So learning how to properly move was one of the biggest things that, really increases your damage, because if you're a melee and you cannot hit people if you're facing away from them, or if you're outside of this 4 to 10 meter range for most classes, then you're going to do pretty much 0 damage, right? So you need good movement as a melee player, and you need to learn how to strafe, how to kite if you're a ranged player. That's really important. Yeah. So that would be like, if I would be really new to PvP, that would be the first thing that I learn. Otherwise, at the end of the day, this game is not so much about, having like a great reaction time or, very high precision when you click, right? Because it's tap targeting.
Yeah.
So it's quite convenient, if you have like old man hands like I do now, and you don't need to be like, have the reaction time of like a table tennis player or something. So, but what's important is that you understand like how the game works, right? So I think what's important, because at the end of the day in PvP, usually the person wins that has more game knowledge, right? Like if we're assuming that everything else is equal, both teams have, similarly experienced players, have the same amount of tanks and healers, then the game knowledge that you have is gonna determine, how successful you're gonna be, right? Because, for example, if I know that the responsive safeguards of the mercenary, you can counter by using an AoE or a damage over time ability, because, it doesn't reflect that. You can still kill them through their safeguards. Right, then I have an advantage, right, compared to if I didn't know that. So it's really just, I think, playing other classes as well, right? So, and playing as much as you can to kind of just see how the game works. And, you can learn a lot from videos, of course, which, I have a couple on my channel as well, where I explain, the different types of damage in the game and why some defensive cooldowns counter some types of abilities, but not others. And, there's a lot of abilities in the game. There's a lot of talents or, choices in the game that you can spec into that make a difference in how combat works. So to learn as much about that as possible, I think is the second biggest thing, particularly when you're starting out. You can pretty quickly these days, level a character up and just try, to read the combat style trees. That's really what it's all about at the end of the day. Because the one who has more knowledge is going to win the fight most of the time. Third tip, to be honest, I would say is find a regular group to play with. Like if we're talking about PvP.
Yeah.
I know some people, more of the lone wolves, they don't necessarily want to find a PvP guild, or, they may be more introverts. I would, probably identify myself also as more of an introvert. That happened to create a YouTube channel at some point. But nevertheless, when I'm with like a big crowd or new people, I'm not maybe the most extroverted person. Still, I think the best thing to learn is if you're, if you have maybe someone to mentor you, or if you have a group of people that are maybe a little bit better than you, but maybe not too much better, or maybe also learning the game at the same time with you, right? Because then you can share information, and maybe you don't have to create a power tech just to learn about the power tech. You can learn from your friend that plays power tech, for example, right? And now I have some power tech. I know how that class works. I know how to counter it, and that way, you save yourselves 2 weeks of leveling a power tech, for example. So I would say, learn how to move your character, learn all the basics, and then learn as much about the game as possible. And third thing is try to make some friends in the game, maybe join a guild, queue together for warzones or arenas. Really helped me back in the day, to find some people to play with and learn from more experienced players, and also makes the game much more enjoyable, in my opinion.
This game will always be better with people. Because
that's the reason I still play, to be honest, right? I've seen your video, right? For why do you still play the game?
Yeah.
And it's because I got lucky back then, and I still remember the Warzone. It was a Nowhere Coast, like a long time ago. Mm-hmm. And I was in that guild I was talking about. The one where I learned to PvP, was also a ranked guild at the time. I wasn't good enough to be on the ranked team, but at least I was in the second team. So back then we had we had two 8-man teams that played ranked Warzones. And I still remember the game. It was like a Nowhere Coast, and I remember fighting this shadow player who I thought, that guy is really annoying, what an asshole. Because he kept like stunning me and was like hard to kill him.
Yeah.
And those are the guys that guy was Kiddo, by the way, and those are the guys that I ended up joining, Tiba and Co. And now we still play together 10 years later. And I actually, we're gonna go to see some comedy show next week.
That's
IRL.
awesome.
So it's even like IRL friends, and that's at least for me the reason why I still play. So even beyond PvP, there's good reasons for that third tip. Try to meet some people, make some friends in the game.